Okay, I think we're going to get started. Thanks everybody for coming. So my name is Bethany Myers. I'm a librarian in the Sciences User Engagement Division of the library. So I used to work in the Biomedical Library in the Center for Health Sciences. My primary areas my communities that I work with are public health and dentistry, but also people from all over the health sciences and sometimes people from other disciplines as well. My email address is right here, bethany.myers@library.ucla.edu. So that's a way to get in touch with me. Feel free to follow up after this session with any further questions that you have, or if you want to get in touch to do some additional troubleshooting or help getting set up with any of the citation managers that we're going to talk about today. And I did want to mention that we are recording this session so that it will be available later on the website. So I wanted to let everybody know as I'm going through my slides, if you have questions, please just unmute yourself and ask the question, just like interrupt me as I'm talking. Or if you'd rather use the chat, feel free to type your question into the chat and I'll try to keep an eye on that. And I would rather you just ask your question during the presentation rather than potentially forget it and miss out on the information that you needed. So yeah, please feel free to talk. Okay, so I'm going to get started with my slides. Today we are talking about citation management. So basically the first thing here is, why are you interested in using a citation management tool? Like, what is the point of these programs and how can they be useful to you in your workflow? So citation management tools are helpful for organizing articles. So it lets you save articles. It lets you group them by different kinds of logical groups. So maybe that's going to be by topic, maybe that's going to be by project. It lets you annotate them, so make notes to yourself. It lets you keep your PDFs of your articles all in one place that's findable and searchable, and just allows you easy and quick and logical, organized access to all the research literature and other kinds of materials that you're going to need to come back to later in your work. Citation management tools let you be collaborative, so they allow you, at least the ones we're looking at today, allow you to share with other people. So you can make different kinds of groups where you can all be looking at the same groups of papers. So everybody can add papers to the group, everybody can then later cite those same papers. And the main reason people, the organizational stuff is great, but the main reason that people really like these tools is the time that they save you when it comes to creating bibliographies. So everybody who's here has probably had the experience of manually typing out your reference list, and it's very tedious. It is, just a very big time sink. You're a lot of times anxious that maybe you missed a piece. And this takes away some of that stress and gives you back some time in your life, and also allows you, not only does it automatically generate a bibliography, but it allows you to quickly and instantly reformat your bibliography to a different citation style. So if you're not sure what I mean by that, don't worry, I will show you in a few minutes. I think we have one question. If you've already started your paper, didn't use the citation management tool, is it too late? So no, the answer is no. Even if you've got a paper already typed up, but you haven't typed up, maybe you've got your text, your manuscript typed up, but you haven't put the bibliography in yet. If you still have time to download one of these and put your citations in there, and then have the program make the bibliography for you. So no, it's not too late. And honestly, it's not too late to start these. Sometimes people tell me like, oh, I wish I had done this at the beginning of my academic career. And, we always wish that the best time to start something that's, going to save you time was yesterday. But it's still worth it now. Like, even if you only have a couple papers left to write and this saves you 2 hours, like that's 2 hours of your life you have back. So, okay. So citation management tools in general have a lot of benefits. So one thing that I did want to say about the automatically generated bibliography aspect of this, so they seem like magic, and they are kind of magic, but in general, the accuracy of what you get out of one of these programs depends on the accuracy of the data that went into it. So, so this will become more clear as I actually show you show you the steps here, but basically the bibliographies that these create automatically are not always perfect. If the data that they're working from was off in any way, if the metadata was a little bit wrong, or if it was missing some information, the citation that comes out, that bibliography that's automatically generated might also be wrong. So if you're counting on this, if you're in the kind of environment where having a slightly off reference, like a professor who marks you down for that, or a journal who's going to come back and ask you to fix it, it's worth double checking the citations that come out. You still need to have kind of an understanding of what the citation style requirements are, just so that you can look at it with your eyes and make sure that there's nothing glaringly wrong. And you do anything that is erroneous here, if the metadata is missing or incomplete, you do have the ability to fix that, but you need to be able to know that it's wrong to know that you can fix it. So again, this will become more clear as we go. I just wanted to say up front that it's not always perfect. Okay, so as far as citation management products that are out there, so you do have a number of options. Let me actually show you this list here. There's a Wikipedia, actually I'll put this in the chat too. This in the chat to everybody. So there's a Wikipedia page, comparison of reference management software, and you can see there's like a lot. And this page is helpful if you're trying to figure out which of these programs are compatible with my word processor, my program, like, you know, all these different factors here. If this is too much for you, don't worry about it. You don't have to be able to memorize all this. I just wanted to show it to you so that you would know that there are multiple options in this space. There are multiple programs that do the kind of things that we're going to be looking at today. I'm not going to show you all of them. I was going to show you two, because these are the two that I get asked most often about and the ones that I would end up recommending most often. Those are Endnote and Zotero. There are other ones, other common ones are like Mendeley or Roughworks. So those may be other ones that you've heard about, and they have similar functionality to the two that we're going to be looking at. So if for some reason, the reason I'm telling you this is because if for some reason you don't really like Endnote or you don't really like Zotero, those aren't your only two options. You can go to that list and find another one that maybe you want to try. So you're not limited to just these two. See what's out there. I would encourage you to pick one, like to find one that you do like working with, whether or not it's Endnote or Zotero. But today, those are the two that we're going to delve into. So we have Endnote. The current version of Endnote is version 20. I do not have that on my computer yet. I have the previous version, which is X9 or 2 versions ago. They update Endnote regularly. So I have a slightly older version, but the functionality is pretty much the same. So I'm going to show you what I have. But the current version you can buy. It's $70 with the academic discount. And there's a link to it. Actually, I guess I can put this link in the chat too, for those of you who are interested in getting it later. One thing that I want to say about Endnote sometimes that comes up is people ask, isn't there a free version of Endnote? And there is a free version of Endnote. It's so limited compared to the $70 one. I feel like the free version of Endnote isn't really worth it. If you don't want to pay anything for your citation management tool, I would highly recommend our other option on this slide, which is Zotero. Zotero is free, and free Zotero is much better than free Endnote. So, so that's why I kind of don't really talk about free Endnote, because the free version doesn't let you do the stuff that's really good about Endnote. But Zotero is great. Zotero is free, it's open source. I do have some information about storage on here, and when I'm saying storage, what I'm talking about is having space on the cloud for the PDFs that you attach to your citations. So if you have a very big library with tons and tons of PDFs and you want to have it hosted on the cloud, Endnote does that for you, and it's included with the fee that you pay for it. And Zotero, if you hit the limit of your free storage, you do have the option to pay them to upgrade your storage space, or there's some workarounds for that because Zotero is open source. There are workarounds for how you can store your papers in the cloud without having to pay. So yeah, so it is free. Okay. And then before we start actually looking at these, a lot of times, you know, people want to know, well, which one should I just use? Like, just tell me which one. And I don't think there necessarily is one right answer for everybody. I feel like, well, the first factor between these two is if you have $70 or you can get your department to give you $70. And if you don't, then use Zotero. If you do have the option to choose between maybe either of these, regardless of the cost, I think Endnote has a lot of advantages when you're working with really big libraries. So if you're doing some kind of project where you know you're going to have hundreds or potentially thousands of results, I think Endnote handles that well. Endnote has features that I'll show you soon that kind of facilitate complicated workflows and organizations. So for example, something I work with people a lot on are search, expert search, like evidence synthesis type projects. So in the health sciences, a lot of times that would be something like a systematic review or a meta-analysis. And a lot of times those involve a lot of references, and you have complicated workflows where you have multiple people having to go through those references and sort them into different categories and groups. So Endnote has really good ways of doing that. Endnote also has a visual citation output style editor, and that can be helpful if you're submitting to like a lot of different journals, or if you know you're going to have special citation output, like idiosyncratic kind of formatting for your reference list, where you're not using a general citation style like APA, but you're having to do like a really specific kind of citation style that only exists, you know, for the one journal or whatever. And then Endnote is also better at importing PDFs after you import a reference, and that's a confusing sentence, but I'll show you what that means in just a moment. And then Zotero is better at importing the PDF at the same time you import the references, and that is because with Zotero, it has a very strong advantage if you're importing references just one at a time from being online. Zotero can import a reference file where you send it hundreds of citations that you've downloaded, but Zotero is like one-click import when you're reading an article and then you're like, oh, I want to save this. It's really good. Okay, so I think it's easier to see these things than for me to continue describing them. So we are going to jump right into this. Okay, so Endnote. So here's my Endnote, which is, again, X9, so not absolutely the latest. Yours may look slightly different if you have a newer version. But we're going to start from the beginning. I'm launching Endnote here, and it's empty. There's nothing on my screen. So what do I want to do if I'm getting started with the library? So I need to create a new library file. So the way Endnote works is I have to actually have a file on my computer for the library, which is the place where I put all my references. So I'm going to make a new library, go to File, New, and we're going to create a new library file. I'm just going to put that on my desktop, and I'm going to call it Demo Library. Okay, so you can see I'm creating this file. It's called demolibrary.enl. The enl file format is the Endnote library file format. Saving that. And then it'll pop up a blank new library for me in just a second. There it is. Before we come back and look at what I just did here, I'm going to show you what I created on my desktop. I just got excited about this annotation thing. So let me see if, there, demolibrary.enl. I don't know if you guys can see that I circled that in red, hopefully. So that's the file that I just created. When I created that file, I also created this one, demolibrary.data, which is down here, over here. So not only did I create the file, the .enl file, it created a .data folder. These two files belong together. I have to have both of these for my library to work. So if you're going to move this into another directory, if I want to move this somewhere else on my computer, I have to bring these two files together. They always have to be in the same directory or my library is going to break. So that is the first thing to know about Endnote, is that it makes files. Those files go on your computer. your library is in those files. If you want to move them around, you can, but just make sure that you keep your data folder and your library file together. Okay, so let's go back to the library. Okay, so here's the library. It's empty right now, but you can kind of get a sense of the layout here. So I have up top, I have these different ways to search, which we'll talk about in a couple minutes. So those are how I toggle between my different ways of searching. I have a little preview bar for different citation styles here. So this is just going to show me a preview of the citation style in my preview pane once I have some stuff in my library. I have these different ways to add references into my library. I have a search bar here. Here's the search bar. I can hide it if I want or show it. And then these are where my references are going to go. But first, we should probably get some references in here. Okay, so there's several ways that you can add references to your Endnote library. So going back to these little icons over here, so there's a file that says local library mode. So that's going to show me what's here, like what's in my library folder, what's in demolibrary.enl, and you can see it's blank. Then I have online search mode, and you can see the little description there. It says displays only online search, records, etc. And then I have integrated library and online search mode. So we're going to toggle to the online search. So this is a way of searching different databases through the Endnote interface. It does work in certain circumstances, but it's not perfect. For those of you who are familiar with something like Pubmed, I'll give you an idea of how this works. So like we can go on here, you can see it can connect to these different databases. I'm going to tell it to connect to the database Pubmed, which is a big common medical database. And then I have my search options here. So I can say like, okay, well, show me stuff from Pubmed where the title contains like gestational diabetes, and then I can click search. So that's like a topical kind of search that you would maybe do in Pubmed. And then you can see like, oh, well, it found 9,000 results, and do I want to look at all 9,000 of these? Like, this is tedious and it's going to take a while. And when I see those results, I don't have the same kind of filters that I would have if I was actually on the Pubmed website. So it's a little annoying to find articles topically like this. But if you knew something in particular that you were looking for, then sometimes this is a nice way to get it. So if I knew that I wanted this particular study, like this is the paper that I want to add, then maybe I would come here and instead of searching by like kind of a general topic like that, I would look for that particular paper. And then that's a little more manageable. Like when I search for a particular paper's title, it's like, oh, okay, well, we only found 2 options for you. And then here they are. And then what do you want to do with these? So this is fine for searching if you know what you want to add. Like I know I want to add this one paper, but it's not great for searching to find things like I just want to find some papers on a topic. I would recommend that you actually like go to Pubmed if you're trying to find some papers on a topic, and we'll actually do that in a minute. But yeah, so if I found this and I wanted to add it to my library, I can right click on it, I can copy it into demolibrary.enl, and it'll go over there. So now if I go back to my local library mode, you can see I have one reference that I got from my online search right here. So that's how this online search works. And similar functionality if you wanted to search like Library of Congress to add a book to your library, or some of these connection files don't work because the way our subscription connects to them just doesn't work correctly. So your best bet is going to be with these the ones that are free and open to search like Pubmed or Library of Congress. But yeah, you can try that if you want. So then there's an integrated library search mode. This one's really
question. Oh, can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Do you mind going back to to all references? You had like 12 references that you originally found.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
They were here. I had searched for.
Right. No, that's okay. So my question is, when I first used Endnote the first time, I didn't know what I was doing. I was just kind of like fumbling my way through, and ended up with like 15,000 references, and now when I go to online references, I still have like, now I kind of have more of a better sense of how to use it, and I develop groups and I have citations that I want to keep. But every time I go to online references, I still have these like 15,000 references there, and I'm not sure, have to go delete them manually one by one, or how do I get rid of the ones that I never really wanted to begin with?
So do you think maybe, so something that can happen, so this mode right here with the world is just showing you the database results. This one right here, where it puts the world in the folder, anything you search on the database goes right into your library. So I search, I go to Pubmed, probably because I can't spell. I type in a topic, it says I have 9,000 results. Say I want to look at the first 100. As soon as I load those results, those 100 results, they went into my library. So now they're in my library, they're here. So even if I go back to my local mode, those are all there. I didn't really, sometimes you don't mean for them to stay there because you thought you were looking them and you were going to get to pick the ones that you wanted to keep. But in this integrated mode, anything you search, no matter whether you wanted to keep it or not, anything that you search, all the results go straight into your library. Do you think maybe that's what happens?
Yes. So how do I get rid of the 99?
Yeah. Great question. So in your, I don't know how long ago you did this. You have this thing right here that says recently added, and you can see there's 101. So it wasn't, this is stuff that I've added. I'm not sure what the cutoff time for recently added is, but usually it's just your last import. So if this number here is the ones you don't want, you can just go here, select all, and then put them in the trash. I don't know if they're still up on your computer or not.
Yeah,
if they're not there, then in that case, without seeing how your library is organized, like if there's some way you can get them because they're not, everything else is filed, do you not have any way to select those?
Yeah, I guess I can, if I deleted them from my all references folder, will they get deleted from my groups as well?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, then deleting stuff from here will delete it out of your groups too.
Okay.
Yeah, so let's actually look at that. Let me take these back because I will keep using them. So moving that out of my trash.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so let's see, once we have references in our library, how can we do some stuff with that? So I can make some groups. I'm going to come on to group. I'm going to right click. I'm going to click create group. And I'm going to say this is my group for gestational diabetes. I'm going to put all 101 into there. So there, now I have a group for that. Before we start kind of managing the groups, I'm going to show you a couple more ways to add papers, and then we'll come back and see what we can do with the organization of those papers. So we looked at how to add papers from the online search. And again, this one is really tricky. I would say don't use this one because it's way too easy to all of a sudden have 1,000 papers or more in your library that you weren't expecting. So don't do the integrated one. Just use online search mode if you really want to use it. So that's one way to add papers into your library. Another way is to add them manually. So you do have this button here that just says new reference, and that just shows you a blank screen. So you can add a reference. You can say, okay, is it a journal article? What type of reference is this? And then fill out the field. So if this is a journal article, I'll just say like the author's name is Sample A, published in 2021 in the journal Fake 1, issue 1, page 100. Oh yeah, and the title of the article is okay, and then I can save that to my library, and then you can see I just closed the window to save it, and then it's right here. Not a real article. So that's how to add one manually. And then the last way that I want to show you, actually I'll show you two more ways, they'll be quick. We'll go to an example database like Pubmed, for example. If I come here and I search something maybe a little bit different, maybe like drinking water. So if I want to save some stuff from my Pubmed search, I can check the box of what I want to save. I can click save. Most databases where you're going to be searching for journal articles will have some kind of button that says save, cite, something like that. So you just want to look for that option somewhere on the page. And then there will be some kind of format change. This can get a little tricky depending on where you are. In this case, saving it as Pubmed format is helpful because I just happen to know that Endnote can import that. Sometimes it's a little bit trial and error. Usually you want to look for file format. I'm actually putting this in the chat. You want to look for something like RIS file format. So it'll be like file.ris. And that's a very common citation manager file format. So see if you have an export option for that. Otherwise, just try whatever file format they give you, save it to your computer. And then once you're back in Endnote, you can go to File, Import, File, and look for the file that you just downloaded. So here's my drinking water file. And then once you're going to import a file, you do have to tell Endnote what kind of file is that. And if you're mostly downloading RIS, you can see the RIS filter is on here. So that's very easy. But in this case, this isn't RIS, it's a .txt that I got from Pubmed. So I can tell it to import with the Pubmed filter, like that, and click import. And there's the two that I just downloaded from Pubmed. So that's one more way to get stuff in here. I'm going to create a group for those called drinking water. Put those in the drinking water group, select, drag them in there. There we go. And then finally, the last way to import, which I'm not going to demo because I want to make sure we have some time to look at Zotero and also Word, is that you can actually import a file or a folder full of PDFs from your computer. So I can say import a folder and find some PDFs that are on my computer, and it'll import them and it'll add the metadata if it can. So what I mean by metadata is this info over here. So you can see when I click on anything in my library, the window on the right where it says reference shows me the data about that citation. So it's going to have the author names, it's going to have the year and the title, and all the stuff that I could have typed in when I was creating the citation manually. So this instead of me having to type this in, this happened to come from Pubmed. You can get stuff from pretty much any database, Google Scholar, etc. And then the ones that I got from searching Pubmed through the online mode are also here with the same kind of metadata. Okay, so now let's look at, oops, slide that back over. And then my preview tab here shows you what that will look like with this citation style that I have selected in this dropdown. So they're showing you, if I choose the annotated citation style, this is what this will look like. And annotated is really long, it shows the abstract. So I'm going to change that to APA 6. There we go. That's a more common citation style format. So this lets you just get a little preview of what this will look like in your reference list. Okay. Any questions about getting, I know that was very quick and does not cover all possible use cases, but in general, the idea of the way to import references from a database online is to select what you want to send to Endnote and then look for some kind of save or download or cite button, download the file, go to File, Import, File, and then tell Endnote where that file came from or what type of file it is. Are there any questions about how that works before I move on to some other features here? Okay. So yeah, so it's a little, it seems complicated, but it's pretty quick once you get the hang of it. And this is something that, oh, let's see, we have a question in the chat. Any tips for Mac users? So it should be the same on Mac. You should have obviously when you're in a database and exporting, that should all be the same. And then I guess the difference would be maybe just pay attention on your that's going into your downloads folder, and so that when you come to Endnote to do your import, you make sure you find it in your downloads folder. There is one thing, I'm not sure what it looks like in the current version of Endnote, but on your, sometimes when you're trying to open the file to import, there's an extra button that you have to click to show additional options here. Yeah, maybe if we have time at the end, somebody with a Mac, if you run into any problems being able to select your file, let me know and maybe we can demo that at the end. But otherwise, it should be the same as on PC. For downloading citations directly into Endnote rather into download. So you would want to download the file to wherever on your computer you want to send that file. So when I do my save here, it downloads a file to my computer. So right here, see, I'm putting it like on my desktop. And sometimes I think on Mac, those, you know, instead of having a save dialog box open up, it just, when you download something, it goes straight into your downloads folder. So just being aware of wherever your downloads are going. It doesn't matter where they are, as long as you just know where they are so that you can find it when you come to do your import in it. So yeah, try it out. And if anybody, if anybody on Mac or OS, if you have any issues with this, send me a chat or let me know, and maybe we can all look at it together before the end of this session. Okay. So lots of ways to get stuff into Endnote. And then once it's in here, we've been making groups. And again, I've been making groups just by right-clicking on my groups and then create group. But I want to show you a couple of other organization options here. So we can create groups, which is what I've been doing, where I just call this, you know, group one, whatever. I can make them for anything I want. You can also do their group sets, which just gives you a whole nother section of groups. And then I can create groups that are under that set. So project, group A, etc. So that's great. The way I get things into these groups is just by dragging them in. So I can put anything into any group. I just click it and drag it into that group. When I delete something out of a group, if I want to say remove reference, I right click on it, remove reference from group. It says, do you want to delete it from your group? It will not be deleted from your library. So it's still in my all references, but it's not in this group. I can put references in the trash. That will get rid of them from my library. And then if you ever want to empty your trash, just right click on it and empty the trash. But in general, moving stuff in and out of groups does not delete it from your library. It will still be in there. It just won't be inside a group. For things that aren't inside a group, you can see they're here under my unfiled section. So I didn't put this fake article into a group. I'll put it in this one now. Now I have nothing that's unfiled. But if you want everything in your library to be grouped, look in your unfiled to see if there's anything that hasn't been categorized. So that's how groups work. There's also fancy kind of groups. So if you right click on this, we have smart groups, which is a way to do basically the functionality of email filters. I don't know if any of you use filters in your Outlook or your Gmail, but this is kind of cool because you can set up any kind of rules that you want. So you can say papers by this author. So let's see, who do I have to publish more than one? I don't know, we'll pick one of these people. We'll pick Ali S. So we'll say any papers by Ali can go in this group called Ali's papers. And then, so if the author field contains ALY, we're going to automatically sort it into this group. So there was only one. But every time I import into my library, anything in my new import that was written by this author will automatically get sorted into this group. So that's kind of nice because you can say if it has, you know, myocardial infarction in the title, sort it into my MI group. If it's by this person, if it was published in the past 2 years, put it into my brand new literature group. There's all kinds of stuff you can do with this that can automatically filter through your papers for you. Pretty neat. And then one last thing I want to show you about organization is the deduplication feature here. So sometimes when you're doing imports from these different databases, or even sometimes you've spent a lot of time in the same database, you may be accidentally imported the same paper multiple times, which you can see I did right here. This is the same paper, it's in here twice. Generally, you don't want to have multiple copies of the same, multiple records for the same paper, because when you go to cite them, then it's like, well, which one is your word connecting to make the citation? And it's confusing and could mess you up down the road. So you want to make sure that your library only has one record per paper. So Endnote can do that for you automatically. If you go to references and then find duplicates, it will look in your library to see where the, like, which papers do you have that are the same as other papers, and then you can compare them and say, keep this one or keep this one. We'll keep that one. So that was it. So deduplication is a huge and helpful feature here. We'll filter sort into more than one group. So each time you make a smart group, it's only for one group. So whenever I make one, so if you wanted to sort multiple ways, you would have to have more than one. So if I wanted to say like, so if I wanted to put this paper into multiple groups, like this Ali paper, if I wanted to say, oh, put that into the Ali paper group, and I wanted to put it into my like myocardial infarction group, I would have to make two different smart groups. So I would have to make one that said, if the title says myocardial infarction, this is in my group. So I can't automatically with one smart group put it into two different groups. Each smart group that I make is only that one group. But I could make a smart group that was like Ali's papers about MI, and I could say if the author is ALY and in the title it contains a particular term. See, it also went into that one automatically. So you can have multiple criteria, but each smart group is only one group. So yeah, pretty fancy there. Okay, and then last thing I'm going to show you inside Endnote is the search. So this is, making smart groups is basically fancy searching that automatically groups stuff while you're searching, but you can also just do regular old searching. So come here, I have my search panel, and then I can just look through it. So I can say like vitamin B6, how many papers do I have about that? And say in which titles say vitamin B6? There's only one. Or I could say which abstracts say vitamin B6, and there's still only one. So there you go. But yeah, you can search by the different fields. A lot of these you can kind of ignore. You know, it's a little over the top. Most of what you're searching topically is going to be like in the title or abstract, or you may want to search by author. You do have custom fields. If you really want to get into this, you can add your own information to these records. I think that's more than we want to get into right now, but it is something that you can do. Okay, so this is all great, lots of sorting. We looked at all different ways to organize, how to get stuff in here, and then the last thing I want to show you is, of course, how this works with Word. And because this is the magic. All right, so I'm in Word. When I installed Endnote, it installed this new ribbon section, whatever you call this, plugin into my Word. You can see up here in Endnote X9, this has some buttons up here. So I'm writing my paper, ready to cite, insert citation. I'm going to look for that paper by Ali et al. I think it was this one, yeah, the second one here. So you do have to do a little search, so you have to know what you're looking for, like either the title or the author's name. Click find. I'm ready to insert that into my paper. There. So now I've got that reference. You can see this style thing is different from the one over here. The one over here that I chose is only showing me, this only affects this preview window. So having APA selected here is only going to show me, oh, this is a preview of what it would look like in APA. But in Word, to get it to show up in a certain citation style, I need to select the citation style here. So I'm showing JAMA. And we're going to continue citing in JAMA. I'm going to go find another paper. We'll cite Chan. There we go. One more. We'll cite this one. There. Okay, so this is a numbered citation style where you have these little superscript numbers, and then in the reference list they're in numerical order. If we switch that to APA, APA is has the author names here, and then in the reference list the order is alphabetical. So you can see the order actually changed according to how APA needs that done. So this is awesome. It seriously saves so much time if you're writing something that you need to reformat it to submit to somewhere else, or whatever. One click, it's great. Super, super fast and easy. Question, will the recording be emailed to participants? I don't know if maybe Edgar could answer that, or Elena. I'm not sure if it gets emailed out, but it will be on the website.
Question, I can just say, this is Elena. I can say that it's going to be posted on the CHIPS website, and it should be up there within the next week. I can add the link here to the chat. And so that's the best way to access it after the session.
Thank you. Okay, so that's how you get your stuff in Word. Awesome. So I want to spend the last few minutes looking at Zotero. Any questions before I move on to Zotero?
I have a quick question. So so I've submitted papers to journals, they've been rejected, and I submit them to a different one, and I have to change the citation style. And it's usually gone from ones that have footnotes, the period footnotes, but then when I change it to APA, I believe, then it just puts a citation after the period. So I have to go back and go through all the in-text citations and move the period, outside of parentheses or inside a sentence or whatever it is. Is there a way to control for that, or is that just, does it make sense what I'm asking?
No, I totally understand what you're asking. And actually it happened right here because you can see I wasn't wanting the space. So when I had it on the numbered style, see how there's no space between the word and the superscript. But then as soon as I change it to something else, it's still no space. There may be a way to fix that by making a custom style. Unfortunately, I don't have time to show it, but let me put my email in the chat again. But that is exactly the kind of thing that I'm happy to help you try to troubleshoot after. So send me an email. I think there might be a way to fix it.
Okay, thank you.
Let me show you guys one more thing about Endnote, because this is actually the reason it's potentially worth $70. So see what's in here. These, again, just metadata. All that's in here is metadata. The title, the abstract, the info about the journal. The article is not in here. If I want to go get the article, I can do that. I can follow the link. I can go download it. I can attach it. Here's my paperclip to attach files, but it's not in here automatically. If I wanted to bring the papers in automatically, I can do that. I'm not going to run it on my whole 103 papers, but I'm just going to pick a few. I'm going to right click and I'm going to show you this feature called Find Full Text. Find Full Text. And this, you can see bottom left here, Find Full Text. Endnote goes and looks for the PDFs of the papers I just told it to look for a PDF for. So, and you can see this little paper clips popping up on the ones that it's finding. It's not perfect. It doesn't always find 100% of things for various reasons, but it does a really good job, and it can save you a lot of time having to go hunt these PDFs down. And if you have a workflow where you need to import the metadata and then maybe go get some PDFs after the fact, this can be really helpful. So in this case, it found 3 out of 7, which, whatever, but hey, it's 3 I didn't have to go get. And then now the PDF is attached. You can see the PDF over here in the window. And if I want to, I can make that bigger and read the paper and annotate it and whatever else I want to do. So find full text is really cool. Only Endnote does that, where you can first import the reference metadata and then go get the PDF. Any ideas on when it'll be updated to APA 7? So there might be an APA 7. So if you ever want a citation file that isn't in there, just Google it. There it is. We can download this, and I probably should so that I can put that into my Endnote. So yeah, there are citation styles online too. Okay, so we are going to move on to Zotero real quick, just so I can still show everybody. I'm sorry we sort of shortchanged Zotero, but the thing is, or not all, but most of the functionality that I just showed you in Endnote is pretty much the same here. The main thing that I want to emphasize that's a little bit different in Zotero is going to be how you get papers in, because I think that's something that Zotero does. Bring back my there. I think that's something Zotero does a little bit differently, and in some ways it's better, and in some ways maybe it's worse, depends on what you need to do. So here's Zotero. You can see the layout is pretty much the same. You've got searching at the top. You've got a way right here to manually add a file. So, or sorry, a record. So I can add manually a journal article if I want to like type all this info in, fake title, etc. We don't want to be adding stuff manually most of the time, but we could do that just like we did in Endnote. I have my organizations, I have folders, that all pretty much works the same. Getting stuff into Zotero, let me show you. I'm sorry, my Zoom bar at the top of my screen makes it a little bit hard to see. I'm just going to go back to a journal article. It doesn't matter what it is. You could be getting to this from Google. You could be getting to this from Google Scholar. You could be getting to this from whatever. But I end up on the article page. So here I am reading this article. So blah, blah, blah. I'm reading it. And then I decide I want to save this to my Zotero library. Zotero installed a little plugin into my browser. I don't know. Here, turn on my annotation again. You guys can see that. It looks like a little piece of paper in my, like to the right of my URL bar. So that is my, my plugin for Zotero. And when I see that, I can click it and it tells me this is a journal article, because the way that little icon looks, I know it's an article. I'm saving it into my library. Zotero sees the full text on this page. It sees the link to the PDF, so it saves the PDF. And then that goes into my library. Go back to my library over here, and you can see here it is, safe drinking water and waterborne outbreaks. And here's the PDF attachment. I can open this from Zotero and read it. Zotero can also import lists of references. It has two ways of doing that. You can do it similar to how Endnote was doing it, where I can import from Pubmed. So that same file that I downloaded earlier, I can go to File, Import. Actually, now that I just said that, I'm not sure it'll import this file format, but let's see. It will import RIS. See, I told you, like, look for RIS. That will work. I don't know if it'll, oh, okay, it did, good. It'll import the Pubmed file format too, so there we go. So there's those two same papers. And you can see it automatically imported them into a folder for that file. But what I can't do at this point, so the other one that I saved with that little connector from my browser had the PDF, because when I saved it, I was on the page that had the PDF, and Zotero saw that PDF and added it. But since I did this, where I imported them from the file, it didn't see the PDF because the PDF is not in Pubmed. All I was doing is importing metadata. So now I just have the metadata, and if I want to attach the PDF, I have to go get it myself and come in here and do attach file, add attachment. And it doesn't have the capability of find full text like Endnote did. So I can't tell it, oh wait, maybe I'm lying, find available PDF. let's see if this works. This may, oh, it worked. Yes, okay, maybe I would compare, okay, this is great. I would compare these. If you already have Zotero and you're interested to see, does this work as well as Endnote? If that's something you want to test with me, let me know. This is actually new to me. I didn't know that it was doing this. And I'm not sure how it's getting these, if these are coming from our subscriptions or not, but wow, I just learned something. So we'll test that out a little more. That's great. I honestly love Zotero. Like, the fact that it's open source means cool features are being added all the time. The last thing I want to promote about Zotero, I know we're about out of time. The last thing that I want to promote about this compared to Endnote is that Zotero works with Google Docs. So the functionality with Google Docs is pretty much the same as what we were doing in Word with Endnote here. Let's look at Word with Zotero real quick because it's pretty much the same thing. I'm going to add a citation. I'm going to pick a citation style. Here's APA 7th, which was updated for me. We're going to add something from my library. We're going to insert this one. I have to click to insert the bibliography separately. And then again, if I want to change the citation style, all I do is go back into my preferences and I can switch it to a different. So that works exactly the same. And then I know we only have 4 minutes, so I won't show you, but just trust me that it also works with Google Docs. So you can, what's great about that is you can do a shared group where I shared this with other people, and then we are all working on the same, adding papers to the same folder, and then we can all go into Google Docs and write together and be citing the same stuff. So Endnote is great, Zotero is great. If you don't like either one of those, again, I really encourage you to go back to that link that I shared earlier in the chat and see what else is on that Wikipedia, and maybe try Mendeley or try one of those other programs and find one of these that you do like. They all work similarly and they will all save you time typing. Any questions for our last few minutes? I'm going to show one more thing, which is how to get in touch with me. I know I just sent everybody my email, but let me give you one more way to contact me. I know this was a really quick kind of overview, and when somebody is showing you how to do things real quick on their screen, sometimes it's not nearly as helpful as getting to do it yourself on your screen. So anybody who wants to learn more about either of these programs, I'm going to send you a link to my contact page. Feel free to send me an email, or feel free to come on here and use the schedule appointment button and make an appointment with me, and we'll go over it together. Like if you want just us to work on helping you set this up, or like the person who had a question about, can we make a custom style, like all that kind of stuff. We didn't delve into everything that these programs can do. So if you're like, oh, she didn't talk about whether it could do this or not, but I was wondering, send me an email or make an appointment and we'll talk about that together. All right, thanks everybody for coming. So I just wanted to say that next week, we are actually going to be talking about literature searching. So especially if you're somebody who wanted to know more about how databases were working, like how can I go get papers out of databases, how can I make good searches, how can I use Pubmed or whatever better. I'm going to be presenting on that next week, April 28th, 11 a.m. So come back for that or watch the recording of that one. And yeah, thanks again for coming, everybody.